Hello, everyone, and welcome to Walking Through the Bible. We have now come to the section of Job where God is speaking. Now, as we said in the last lesson, this is the part of Job where we know we can find absolute truth. While the entire book of Job is inspired, the Holy Spirit was inspiring the author to properly tell us what Job, his three friends, and Elihu were saying. He is not making a comment on whether or not their conclusions were right. We had to use other scriptures with actual revealed truth to determine what was and what wasn't correct. Over the next 4 chapters, we don't have to make those determinations. God is speaking, and so his conclusions are so. The way God reproves Job is through a series of questions meant to humble Job to the point that Job realizes that he should not question the Lord in what he does or allows. Let's see the type of questions God asks in the next section of Job 38. So if you have a Bible with you, turn to the book of Job to chapter 38. We're going to be reading from verses 12 to 21. If you don't have a Bible, don't worry, just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So, Job chapter 38, beginning of verse 12. Have you commanded the morning since your days began, and caused the dawn to know its place, that it might take hold of the ends of the earth, and the wicked be shaken out of it? It takes on form like clay under a seal, and it stands out like a garment. From the wicked their light is withheld, and from the upraised arm it is broken. Have you entered the spring of the sea, or have you walked in the search of the depths? Have the gates of death been revealed to you, or have you seen the doors of the shadow of death? Have you comprehended the breadth of the earth? Tell me if you know all this. Where is the way in the dwelling of light? And darkness, where is its place, that you may take it to its territory, that you may know the paths to its home? Do you know it because you were born then, or because the number of your days is great? As we said at the top, God is reproving Job through a series of questions. And when you think about it, this is a very effective method of reproof, for it doesn't give Job any room to question God's conclusions. Either Job knows the answers or he doesn't. And if he doesn't, that shows Job that he is limited in his knowledge about earthly things. So who is he to question God and God's goodness? Whereas Job's 3 friends and Elihu appealed to human wisdom, which could be refuted, God appealed to heavenly wisdom, which could not. In this section, God asked Job if he commands the day since he was born, meaning that he could tell the sun to rise and when to set. Did he divide the day from the night? And the answer to that is no. But God could do both of those things. In Genesis chapter 1, if we go all the way back to Genesis 1 and read verses 3 to 5, it says this. Then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. So the evening and the morning were the first day. Moving on to Joshua chapter 10, we're going to read verses 12 to 14. Then Joshua spoke to the Lord in the day when the Lord delivered up the Amorites before the children of Israel, and he said in the sight of Israel, "Sun, stand still over Gibeon, and moon in the valley of Ajalon." So the sun stood still, and the moon stopped. The people had revenge upon their enemies. Is this not written in the book of Jasher? So the sun stood still in the midst of heaven, and it did not hasten to go down for about a whole day. And there has been no day like that before it or after it, that the Lord heeded the voice of man, for the Lord fought for Israel. And then we read at the cross in the New Testament Gospel of Luke in verses 23, verses 44 and 45. Now it was about the 6th hour, and there was darkness over all the earth until the 9th hour. Then the sun was darkened, and the veil of the temple was torn in two. God not only created the light, he not only divided the light from the darkness, but he can control them by the word of his power. He can send the light or withhold it if he so chose. Job could not. And even today, we cannot. The sun rises and it sets at predictable times, but we can't control it and will never be able to do so because we are not God. Has Job gone to the depths of the sea to enter the springs of the sea? I find this statement interesting for a couple reasons. For one, underwater travel was impossible for the people of Job's day, so God was asking Job if he had explored the depths of the sea to know what was down there. And of course the answer is no, but God knew what was there, for he made it. For back in Genesis chapter 1, we read at verses 9 and 10. Then God said, "Let the waters under the heavens be gathered together in one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and gathering together of waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. But I find this interesting for another reason. It talks about springs of the sea or underwater vents. When you look out at the ocean, the water simply looks to be there, like water in a bathtub. Ocean levels rise depending on how much rain falls on the earth, how much water runs off from the land, and the amount of sea ice present on the earth. It doesn't look like there are springs underneath it providing water that way. And because Job couldn't dive to the depths of the oceans to see that, there is no way for him or any other person alive at that time to know that. But God said that these vents were there. For Genesis chapter 7, verses 11 and 12 says this: "In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, the 17th day of the month, on that day all the fountains of the great deep were broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened. And the rain was on the earth 40 days and 40 nights. Man didn't know scientifically that these springs existed until 1977, a mere 48 years ago as of the publication of this lesson in our podcast. Isn't it amazing that the book of Job got this right? Impossible without the inspiration of God. God then asked Job if he knew everything there is to know about death. Where does man go after death? What do we experience after death? What is it like to be a spirit without a body? Is the experience of death painful or peaceful? We're talking about the moment of death. What does Hades look like? These are all things that man cannot know and Job could not know, but God does. God doesn't give us a peek behind the curtain of death often, but he did in the story of the rich man and Lazarus. For there we read in Luke chapter 16, verses 22 to 26. "So it was that the beggar died and was carried by the angels to Abraham's bosom. The rich man also died and was buried. And being in torments in Hades, he lifted up his eyes and saw Abraham afar off and Lazarus in his bosom. Then he cried and said, 'Father Abraham, have mercy on me, and send Lazarus that he may dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, for I am tormented in this flame.' But Abraham said, 'Son, remember that in your lifetime you received your good things, and likewise Lazarus evil things. But now he is comforted, and you are tormented. And besides all this, between us and you there is a great gulf fixed, so that those who want to pass from here to you cannot, nor can those from there pass to us.'" Jesus was the one who told that story, and he always used real places, not fictional ones, when teaching about God's truth, so we can know this place exists. God knows everything about it because he made it. Job knew nothing about it, nor do we. Job didn't know the size of the earth, though we have determined this today through exploration, nor did Job know the dwelling place of light. There's a lot we know about light today that the people of Job's day didn't know and couldn't know. But for all that we know about it, we don't know where a photon of light originally originated from. Sure, many scientists will say the Big Bang caused everything. But even if we accepted that as true, which I do not, where did that come from? Where did these photons originally come from, and why do they act the way that they do, sometimes acting as a wave and sometimes as a particle? We don't have the answers to those questions from a scientific standpoint, but God does, because he created light. For Genesis chapter 1, in verse 3, there it says, "And God said, 'Let there be light,' and there was light." God created all the wavelengths of light there is, that which can be seen and that which cannot. And not only that, God upholds all things by the word of his power. For in the New Testament, in Hebrews chapter 1, in verses 1 to 3, it says, "God, who at various times and in various ways spoke in times past to the fathers by the prophets, has in these last days spoken to us by his Son, whom he has appointed heir of all things, through whom he also made the worlds, who being the brightness of his glory and the express image of his person, and upholding all things by the word of his power, when he had by himself purged our sins, sat down at the right hand of the majesty of God on high." God did all of this, and Job wasn't even born yet, nor does he comprehend any of it. How then could Job sit in judgment of God? We'll continue on with God's reproof of Job, the Lord willing, in the next lesson. With that, our time is up for today. The Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of Job chapter 38, verses 22 to 30, as we continue our walk through the Bible. one verse at a time. We thank you for watching Walking Through the Bible today. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them below. But if you like this video, we ask that you consider subscribing to our channel so you won't miss out on other videos in our series, as well as share this video among your friends so that the saving message of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.